Veltar pressed his six-fingered hand against the cold metal wall of the observation deck. Through the massive window, stars dotted the black space like scattered diamonds. He had seen thousands of worlds from this research station, but today felt different. Today, he would begin studying a new species called humans. The assignment had come from the highest levels of the Morthek Council. Veltar was one of their best anthropologists, known for his careful studies of primitive civilizations. He had watched the Kelthani fight their civil wars with stone weapons. He had documented the Viridian expansion across 3 star systems using basic nuclear technology. Now the Council wanted him to observe humans during their first interstellar war. Another young species learning the hard lessons of space, Veltar had told his colleague Morven the day before. They will follow the same patterns as all the others. Fight for resources, make basic tactical mistakes, eventually learn diplomacy when the cost becomes too high. Morven had nodded, his large black eyes reflecting agreement. The Kethrain Empire chose an easy target this time. Humans have only been in space for a few decades. Their technology is primitive compared to the Kethrain. But as Veltar stood at the window now, reading the latest intelligence reports, something felt wrong. The war had been going on for 6 months, and the humans were still fighting. Most primitive species surrendered or were destroyed within weeks when facing an advanced empire like the Kethrain. He activated his personal tablet and reviewed the mission briefing again. The Kethrain Empire had demanded that humans surrender their outer colonies and accept tributary status. It was a standard demand from an advanced civilization to a primitive one. The humans had refused. Then, they had done something unexpected. They had attacked first. Veltar walked to his preparation chamber and began putting on his observation suit. The advanced technology would make him invisible to both human and Kethrain sensors. He could move freely through battle zones, recording everything for later analysis. The suit's AI would translate languages and help him understand the tactical situations he witnessed. "Computer, show me the current battle positions," he said. A holographic display appeared in the air before him. Red dots marked Kethrain positions. Blue dots showed human forces. The humans were heavily outnumbered in every engagement. Their ships were smaller and carried weaker weapons. By all logical calculations, they should have been defeated months ago. "Computer, explain why the humans are still fighting." "Insufficient data," the AI responded. "Human tactical behavior does not match known patterns for primitive civilizations." Veltar finished putting on his suit and moved toward his personal observation ship. It was a small, fast vessel designed to slip through battle zones unnoticed. As he climbed into the pilot's seat, he thought about what he might find. The journey to the front lines took 3 hours. Veltar used the time to study everything the Morthek had learned about humans. They were a relatively young species, having achieved spaceflight only 73 years ago. Their technology was based on crude fusion engines and primitive computers. They had no experience with interstellar warfare. The Kethrain, on the other hand, had been conquering star systems for over 1,000 years. Their ships were fast, heavily armed, and piloted by experienced warriors. They had never lost a war against a primitive species. As Veltar's ship approached the battle zone, his sensors detected massive energy signatures ahead. A fight was happening right now. He activated his cloaking device and moved closer to observe. What he saw made him stop breathing for a moment. A human fleet of 30 ships was engaged with 50 Kethrain vessels. The humans should have been running or surrendering. Instead, they were attacking in a pattern Veltar had never seen before. Their ships moved in groups of 3, each group supporting the others in a complex dance of attack and retreat. 1. Human ship, badly damaged and losing atmosphere, suddenly accelerated directly toward a Kethrain cruiser. Veltar expected it to ram the enemy ship in a desperate suicide attack. Instead, at the last second, the human ship released something. Not a missile or torpedo, but pieces of itself. Debris and atmosphere vented from the damaged ship created a cloud that confused the Kethrain sensors. 2 other human ships used this distraction to attack the cruiser from different angles. The Kethrain ship, powerful as it was, could not defend against attacks from 3 directions at once. It exploded in a brilliant flash of light, but the damaged human ship was not done. As it drifted past the wreckage, Veltar saw small objects detach from its hull. Escape pods, he realized. The crew was still alive. Other human ships moved to rescue them while continuing to fight. Veltar recorded everything, but his hands were shaking. This was not how primitive species fought. They were supposed to use simple tactics, make obvious mistakes, let emotions cloud their judgment. These humans were doing something else entirely. He moved his ship closer, trying to get better recordings. His instruments identified the human commander's ship by its communication patterns. The vessel was called Soul's Pride and was commanded by someone named Taimin. Through his translation systems, Veltar listened to the human communications. Commander Taimin's voice was calm and steady as he gave orders to his fleet. There was no panic, no desperation. He spoke like someone who had planned for exactly this situation. Captain Sora, take your squadron through grid 77 and hit their left flank. Hyunwoo, I need you to calculate firing solutions for the next phase. Understood, Commander, came the reply from Captain Sora. My ships are ready. Veltar watched as the human ships executed their commander's orders, with precision. They moved like they had practiced these maneuvers for years. But that was impossible. Humans had never fought a space war before. The battle continued for 2 more hours. By the end, the Kethrain fleet had retreated, leaving behind 8 destroyed ships. The humans had lost only 3 vessels, and they had rescued most of the crews from those. As the human fleet regrouped and began rescue operations, Veltar sat in his hidden ship, staring at his recordings. Everything he thought he knew about warfare was wrong. Everything the Morthek Council believed about primitive species was wrong. These humans were not primitive. They were something else entirely. He opened a communication channel to the research station and began composing his first report. But as he tried to write down what he had seen, he found himself struggling to find the right words. How could he explain to the Council that their fundamental understanding of warfare might be incomplete? Veltar saved his recordings and set course for the next battle zone. He needed to see more before he could make any conclusions, but deep in his mind, a small voice was beginning to whisper a terrifying possibility. What if the humans were not the primitive species everyone thought they were? What if they were something much more dangerous? Veltar had been following the human fleet for 3 weeks now. Each battle he observed made him more confused and more frightened. The humans kept doing things that should not have been possible for a primitive species. Today, he was watching a human mining operation that had been attacked by Kethrain forces. The miners had only basic equipment and no military training. They should have surrendered immediately when the enemy ships appeared. Instead, something incredible was happening. Engineer Dong Hyun stood in the middle of the mining station's main bay shouting orders to his workers. Around him, men and women were taking apart mining equipment with practiced speed. Veltar watched through his hidden cameras as they removed plasma cutters from excavation machines and attached them to makeshift weapon mounts. Boram, get those fusion charges from Tunnel 7, Dong Hyun called out. We are going to turn them into missiles. Sergeant Boram, a small woman with grease-stained clothes, nodded and ran toward the storage area. She moved like a soldier, even though her records showed she was just a mining supervisor. Veltar was beginning to suspect that humans did not have civilians in the same way other species did. The Kethrain attack ships circled the mining station like predators. Their commander was probably waiting for the humans to surrender. It was standard practice when attacking civilian targets. Most species valued their non-combatants too much to let them be slaughtered. Humans, Veltar was learning, were not most species. Incoming transmission from the Kethrain, announced the station's communication officer. Put it on speakers, Dong Hyun said, not stopping his work on the improvised weapons. A harsh, grating voice filled the station. The Kethrain commander spoke in accented human language. Human miners, you will surrender now. We offer you life if you do not resist. Fight us and you will all die. Dong Hyun looked up from his work and smiled. It was not a nice smile. Tell him we received his message, he said to the communication officer. Tell him we have a counteroffer. The officer activated the transmitter. Kethrain commander, this is Mining Station 7. We have received your surrender demand. Our response is go burn in space. Veltar felt his blood chill at the casual way the humans had just declared war. These were miners, not soldiers. They had families, homes, reasons to live. Why were they choosing to fight? The Kethrain ships immediately began their attack. Energy beams struck the station's shields, which flickered and began to fail. The station's defensive systems were designed to protect against asteroids and space debris, not military weapons. But Dong-hyun and his people were ready. The improvised plasma cannons fired in sequence, sending superheated energy toward the attacking ships. The weapons were crude and inaccurate, but they hit hard enough to damage Kethrain armor. One enemy fighter spun out of control and crashed into an asteroid. Bo-Ram, launch the surprises, Dong-hyun shouted. From hidden launch tubes around the station, modified fusion charges shot out into space. They were not guided missiles. Humans did not have that technology. Instead, they were set to explode at specific distances, creating clouds of superheated plasma and metal fragments. The Kethrain pilots, expecting to fight defenseless miners, suddenly found themselves flying through a maze of explosions. 2 more ships were damaged and 1 was destroyed completely, but the human weapons were limited. After 20 minutes of fighting, the station's improvised defenses were exhausted. The Kethrain commander, angry now, ordered a direct assault. That was when Veltar saw something that would haunt his dreams for years. As the enemy ships moved in for the final attack, Bo-Ram grabbed an emergency thruster pack and headed for the station's main airlock. She was carrying the largest fusion charge Veltar had ever seen. Bo-Ram, what are you doing? Dong-hyun called after her. Buying time for the evacuation, she replied calmly. Make sure the families get to the escape pods, before anyone could stop her. She was outside the station, flying through space toward the incoming Kethrain ships. The fusion charge in her arms was armed and counting down. Veltar watched in horror as the small human woman flew directly into the path of 6 heavily armed warships. The Kethrain pilots, confused by this suicidal attack, hesitated for just a moment. That moment was enough. Bo-Ram's fusion charge exploded between the enemy ships, creating a miniature star for 3 seconds. When the light faded, 4 Kethrain vessels were gone. The remaining 2 were badly damaged and retreating. The mining station was saved, but Bo-Ram was dead. Veltar sat in his hidden observation ship, staring at the readings from his instruments. The explosion should have killed everyone within a kilometer radius. Somehow, Bo-Ram had positioned herself and the charge to minimize damage to the station while maximizing damage to the enemy. She had sacrificed her life with mathematical precision. Over the next several days, Veltar observed similar events throughout human space. A cargo ship captain named Wu Jin used his vessel's engines to create a fake star signature, confusing an entire Kethrain battle fleet. A medical officer called Hee-jin turned her hospital ship into a trap, using fake distress signals to lure enemy ships into an ambush. Most disturbing was Admiral In-soo's fleet action near the Tau Ceti system. The humans were heavily outnumbered and should have retreated. Instead, In-soo split his forces into smaller groups and began what appeared to be random attacks throughout the system. For hours, Veltar could not understand the strategy. The human ships seemed to be wasting their ammunition and fuel on meaningless targets. They attacked cargo depots, communication relays, and mining stations with equal intensity. Then he realized what was happening. The humans were not trying to win a traditional space battle. They were sending a message. Every target they hit was chosen to demonstrate something specific about human capabilities. The cargo depot showed they could strike supply lines. The communication relays proved they could cut off enemy coordination. The mining stations revealed they could destroy economic infrastructure. Admiral In-soo was not fighting a battle. He was giving a lesson in terror. The Kethrain fleet, powerful as it was, began to withdraw from the system. Their commander had realized that these humans would destroy everything rather than accept defeat. Every victory against them would be a costly one. That night, Veltar sent his second report to the Morthek Council. He tried to explain what he had observed, but the words seemed inadequate. How could he describe the way humans turned mining equipment into weapons? How could he explain their willingness to die for strategic advantage? The reply from the council came quickly. They were pleased with his observations but wanted more data on human military technology. They still believed this was a war between primitive and advanced civilizations. Veltar deleted the reply without responding. The council did not understand what they were dealing with. These humans were not primitive. They were something else. Something that did not fit into any category the Morthek had ever studied. As he prepared to sleep, Veltar thought about Boram flying into space with her fusion charge. She had known she would die, but she had done it anyway. Not for glory or honor, but because it was the most effective way to protect her people. That kind of calculation, combined with that kind of sacrifice, was terrifying. Veltar was beginning to suspect that the Kethrane Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked a species that looked primitive but fought like something much more dangerous. He was also beginning to suspect that he was not as well hidden as he thought. Several times he had noticed human ships changing course for no apparent reason, almost as if they knew he was watching. But that was impossible. His cloaking technology was centuries ahead of anything humans possessed, wasn't it? The alarm in Veltar's observation ship woke him from uneasy sleep. Red lights flashed across his control panel, and his computer was speaking in urgent tones. Warning. Unknown energy signature detected. Cloaking field compromised. Warning. Veltar jumped from his sleeping alcove and ran to the pilot's seat. This was impossible. His ship used Morthek technology that was hundreds of years ahead of anything humans possessed. No primitive species should be able to detect him. Through his main screen, he could see a human patrol ship approaching. It was small and looked harmless, but it was coming directly toward his position. Not toward the area where he might be hiding, directly toward his exact location. Computer, full power to cloaking system, he ordered. Cloaking system is operating at maximum efficiency, the AI replied. Energy signature remains visible to approaching vessel. Panic flooded through Veltar's mind. If the humans captured him, everything would change. The Morthek Council had strict rules about contact with primitive species. His mission was to observe only, never to interfere or reveal himself. But as the human ship drew closer, Veltar realized something even more frightening. This was not an accident. The patrol ship was moving with purpose, like hunters who had been tracking prey for a long time. Unknown vessel, this is Lieutenant J-Ho of the human patrol ship, Busan's Light, came a voice over his communication system. We know you are there. Please respond. Veltar's hands shook as he reached for the communication controls. How could they know he was there? How were they speaking directly to his ship? We are not hostile, the human voice continued. We have been tracking your ship for several weeks. Our chief engineer finds your cloaking technology very interesting. She would like to talk with you. Several weeks? They had been watching him while he thought he was watching them. Veltar felt his worldview cracking like broken glass. Before he could decide what to do, his ship's systems began shutting down, one by one. First the engines, then the weapons, then the life support. Something was draining power from his vessel faster than his generators could produce it. What is happening? He asked his computer. External electromagnetic pulse detected. All systems affected. Ship power at 30% and falling. On his screen, the human patrol ship was now very close. Veltar could see that it had deployed some kind of device, a weapon that was stealing the energy from his ship. But humans were not supposed to have this technology. Please prepare for boarding, came Lieutenant J-Ho's voice again. Do not be afraid. We just want to talk. 20 minutes later, Veltar found himself sitting in the patrol ship's small briefing room. 3 humans sat across from him at a metal table. Lieutenant J-Ho was a young man with kind eyes and a gentle voice. Next to him sat a woman with tools hanging from her belt. Chief Engineer Hana. The third human introduced herself as Colonel Yu Jin. We apologize for the dramatic capture, Colonel Yu Jin said in perfect Morthek language. But we needed to talk with you, and we were not sure you would agree to a meeting. Veltar stared at her. You speak my language? Hana smiled. We have been listening to your communications for 3 weeks. Your language is actually quite easy to learn once you understand the basic patterns. That is impossible, Veltar said. Morthec linguistics are extremely complex. It takes years to learn even basic phrases. Maybe for your people, Jeho said. Humans learn languages differently. We had the basic structure figured out in 4 days. Veltar felt another piece of his understanding break apart. The Morthec language was considered one of the most difficult in known space. Advanced species with powerful computers needed months to achieve basic communication. How did you detect my ship? He asked. Hana's eyes lit up with excitement. Oh, that was fun. Your cloaking field bends light around your vessel, but it also creates gravitational distortions. Very small ones, but we have sensitive equipment. We started tracking you after the mining station battle. Gravitational distortions? Veltar repeated. But those would require incredibly advanced sensors to detect. We built them, Hana said, simply. After we realized someone was watching us, I designed new detection systems. It took a few tries, but we got there. Colonel Yu Jin leaned forward. Veltar, yes, we know your name. We have been monitoring your transmissions. We want you to know that we are not angry about your observations. We understand scientific curiosity, but we need to discuss some things. What things? Veltar asked, though he was afraid of the answer. The war, Yujin said. The Kethrain Empire thinks they are fighting primitive humans who got lucky a few times. They do not understand what they are really facing. What are they really facing? Veltar whispered. Jeho and Hana exchanged looks. Yujin was quiet for a long moment before answering. They are facing humans who have been preparing for this war for 50 years, she said finally. Ever since we learned we were not alone in the galaxy, we have been getting ready for someone to attack us. Veltar's mind reeled. 50 years? But humans only achieved interstellar travel 20 years ago. We achieved interstellar travel 20 years ago, Yujin corrected. We started preparing for interstellar war 50 years ago. There is a difference. Hana pulled out a small device and activated it. A holographic display appeared above the table, showing technical diagrams that made Veltar's eyes widen. Your cloaking technology is very good, she said. But once we understood the basic principles, we were able to adapt. Look at this. The diagram showed a human ship that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. We cannot make ourselves invisible, like you can, Hana explained. But we can make ourselves look like something else. Asteroids, space debris, even other ships. The patrol vessel that captured you, Jeho added. It looks like a small, harmless scout ship, but it is actually carrying enough firepower to destroy a Kethrain cruiser. Veltar looked around the small briefing room with new eyes. The walls looked simple, but he could now see the subtle lines that marked hidden weapon systems and armor plating. You have been pretending to be primitive, he said. Not pretending, Yujin corrected. We are primitive compared to species, like yours. But primitive does not mean stupid, and it does not mean helpless. Colonel Yujin stood up and walked to the room's small window. Outside, Veltar could see other human ships moving in formation. They looked small and weak compared to Kethrain vessels, but now he was beginning to understand that appearances meant nothing. We know about your people, Veltar, Yujin said without turning around. The Morthec Confederation, peaceful, advanced, scientific. You have been watching younger species for centuries, studying them, learning from them. Yes, Veltar said. It is our way. And you have never been threatened by any of these younger species, have you? Yujin turned to face him. They fight. Their wars. They develop their technology. They eventually join the galactic community as peaceful members. That is correct. So you have never seen a species like us before? It was not a question. Veltar realized that these humans understood something about themselves that even he was only beginning to grasp. What makes you different? He asked. Jeho answered. We are not fighting this war to win territory or resources. We are fighting it to teach a lesson. What lesson? Hana's smile was not entirely friendly. That attacking humans is a very bad idea. Yujin sat back down at the table. Veltar, we are going to give you a choice. You can continue observing our war, But you will do it from inside our fleet. You will see everything, understand everything, or you can return to your people now with the information you already have. Why would you let me see everything? Because, Colonel Yujin said quietly, we want your people to understand what they are dealing with. We want the entire galaxy to understand. Veltar looked at the three humans sitting across from him. They seemed so normal, so harmless. But behind their calm expressions, he could sense something vast and dangerous, like looking at the surface of a deep ocean and knowing that terrible things moved in the darkness below. I will stay, he said. Yujin nodded. Good. But understand this. Once you see what we are really capable of, you will never look at humans the same way again. As if on cue, all three humans smiled. Veltar had seen thousands of species smile, but human smiles were different. They could mean friendship or welcome or joy, but they could also mean something much more frightening. And for the first time since beginning his observation mission, Veltar wondered if he would survive to make his final report. Major Kyung-soo's rapid response unit was nothing like what Veltar had expected. The human soldiers treated him with surprising kindness, sharing their food and explaining their equipment. But as he watched them prepare for their next mission, Veltar began to understand that kindness and deadliness could exist in the same people. Target is a Kethrain supply depot, Kyung-soo explained to his team. They sat in a circle inside their transport ship, checking weapons and reviewing tactical displays. Intel says 30 enemy personnel, light defensive systems. Veltar watched the human soldiers work. They moved with practiced efficiency, but there was something else in their behavior. They joked with each other, shared stories about home, complained about the food. They acted like ordinary people, not the terrifying warriors he had seen in battle. Medic Hee-jin sat next to him, cleaning her medical equipment. She was a small woman with gentle hands and a soft voice. This is your first time seeing humans. Up close, isn't it? She asked. Yes, Veltar replied. You are different than I expected. How so? Veltar struggled to find the right words. You seem so normal. But I have seen what you do in battle. Hee-jin smiled sadly. We are normal. That is what makes this war so terrible. Before Veltar could ask what she meant, the transport ship arrived at their destination. Through the windows, he could see the Kethrain supply depot, a heavily fortified station built into an asteroid. It looked impregnable. Team leaders report, Major Kyung-soo said into his communicator. Sniper team ready? Came the voice of Ji-woo, a quiet woman who carried a rifle larger than herself. Demolitions ready, reported Sung-ho, a man who smiled too much when talking about explosives. Entry team ready, said Captain Min-ho, whose squad would be going inside the station. Medical standing by, added Hye-jin. Veltar watched through the ship's cameras as the human teams moved into position. They worked like parts of a single organism, each group supporting the others in ways that seemed impossible to coordinate. Ji-woo's sniper team found positions on nearby asteroids, invisible to the enemy but with clear shots at the depot's defensive systems. Seung-ho's demolitions experts placed charges on the station's power grid with artistic precision. Min-ho's entry team waited for the perfect moment to strike. Then everything happened at once. Ji-woo's shots took out the depot's communication array and main sensors. The Kethrain defenders suddenly found themselves blind and unable to call for help. At the same moment, Seung-ho's charges exploded, cutting power to the station's weapon systems. Min-ho's team breached the station through 3 different airlocks simultaneously. Veltar watched on his display as the human soldiers moved through the corridors like flowing water, always in the right place at the right time. But what shocked him most was what happened when they encountered the enemy. A group of Kethrain warriors trapped in a storage bay chose to fight rather than surrender. The human soldiers responded with overwhelming force, filling the room with energy beams and explosive charges. When the smoke cleared, all the Kethrain were dead. Immediately after, the same human soldiers found a wounded Kethrain technician, hiding in a maintenance shaft. Instead of killing him, they called for medic Hye-jin. Veltar watched in amazement as Hye-jin worked to save the life of an enemy soldier. Her hands moved with the same precision she had used to clean her weapons, but now she was healing instead of preparing to kill. "Why are you helping him?" the Kethrain asked weakly in broken human language. "Because you are hurt," Hyojin replied simply, as if this explained everything. The contrast was staggering. These humans could kill with perfect efficiency when necessary, but they could also show mercy to defeated enemies. They seemed to switch between warrior and healer as easily as changing clothes. The mission was completed in less than 2 hours. The supply depot was captured with minimal damage, its supplies secured for human use. Most of the Kethrain defenders were taken prisoner rather than killed. But as they prepared to leave, Captain Minho received an urgent communication. "Major Kyung-soo, this is command. Kethrain battle fleet approaching your position. Estimated time of arrival, 3 hours." Veltar felt his blood chill. 3 hours was not enough time to evacuate the captured supplies. The humans would have to choose between abandoning their prize or fighting an entire enemy fleet. "Orders, sir?" Minho asked. Major Kyung-soo was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, and Veltar recognized that particular human expression. It was the smile that meant something terrible was about to happen. "Seung-ho, how much explosive do we have left?" "Enough to crack this asteroid in half, sir." "Good. Jiwoo, can your team delay that fleet for 30 minutes? Give me 40 snipers and some heavy equipment, and I can delay them for an hour." Kyung-soo activated his communicator. "Command, this is Rapid Response 7. We are implementing Protocol Starfall." Even through the static, Veltar could hear the shock in the command officer's voice. "Major, are you certain? Protocol Starfall is extreme circumstances, Command. We have no choice." Veltar did not understand what Protocol Starfall meant, but the human soldiers around him began moving with new urgency. Their casual joking stopped, replaced by grim determination. Hyojin appeared at his side. "You should prepare yourself," she said quietly. "What you are about to see will be difficult to watch." "What is Protocol Starfall?" "Sometimes," she said, "the only way to win a battle is to make sure nobody else can fight it." Over the next hour, Veltar watched the humans implement the most ruthless military strategy he had ever witnessed. They turned the captured supply depot into a massive trap, using the Kethrain's own supplies against them. Seung-ho and his demolitions team placed explosives throughout the asteroid, but not randomly. Each charge was positioned to create a specific pattern of destruction. When the Kethrain fleet arrived and tried to retake their depot, the humans would detonate the charges in sequence. The result would not just destroy the depot, it would turn the entire asteroid into a weapon. Chunks of rock the size of buildings would fly out in all directions, creating a deadly field of debris that would destroy any ships in the area, including the human ships. "Sir," Captain Minho said to Major Kyung-soo, "evacuation transports are standing by. We can pull out now and trigger the charges remotely." Kyung-soo shook his head. "Negative. If we leave, the Kethrain might detect the explosives and disarm them. We stay until the last possible moment." Veltar realized what this meant. The humans were willing to sacrifice themselves to deny the enemy a strategic victory. They would stay on the asteroid until the Kethrain fleet was committed to the attack, then detonate the charges even if it meant their own death. When the enemy fleet finally arrived, Veltar watched 50 Kethrain warships approach the depot. They moved confidently, expecting to find their supply base defended by the small human force they had detected. Instead, they found something unprecedented in the history of warfare. Jiwoo's snipers opened fire from hidden positions, not trying to destroy enemy ships but targeting their sensors and communication arrays. The Kethrain fleet found itself partially blind just as they entered the debris field around the asteroid. At that moment, Major Kyung-soo gave the order. "All teams, Protocol Starfall is now active. Seung-ho, initiate sequence." The explosion started small and built in intensity. Charges throughout the asteroid detonated in a carefully planned cascade, each blast adding to the power of the next. The supply depot disappeared in a flash of light, followed by the asteroid itself. But the human soldiers had calculated everything perfectly. They triggered their evacuation at the exact moment when the debris field would provide cover for their escape ships, while destroying anything that tried to follow them. Veltar watched in horrified admiration as 27 Kethrain warships were destroyed by flying chunks of rock. The remaining ships, damaged and confused, retreated from the system rather than risk further losses. The humans had turned a simple supply raid into a major strategic victory, using nothing but explosives and physics. As their transport ship escaped the destruction, Hyejin sat down next to Veltar again. "Now you understand," she said quietly. "Understand what? Why this war will not end the way the Kethrain expect. They think they are fighting soldiers. But we are not just soldiers. We are engineers, doctors, miners, teachers, parents. When you attack humans, you are not just fighting our military, you are fighting our entire civilization." Veltar looked around at the human soldiers in the transport. They were back to their normal behavior, joking, sharing food, talking about home. It was as if the terrifying display of tactical brilliance had never happened. But now he understood that this casual normalcy was the most frightening thing of all. These people could plan and execute devastatingly effective military operations while remaining fundamentally human. They were not warriors who had learned to be people. They were people who had learned to be warriors. And that, Veltar realized, was what made them so dangerous. The final battle of the war was nothing like Veltar had expected. For months he had watched humans fight with desperate creativity, turning every disadvantage into an opportunity. Now, as he stood on the bridge of Admiral Eunyoung's flagship, he was about to witness something that would change his understanding of warfare forever. "Admiral, all fleets report ready," announced the communications officer. "Thank you, Lieutenant," Eunyoung replied calmly. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but when she spoke, everyone listened. "Dr. Byung-ho, are our guests in position?" Dr. Byung-ho checked his displays. "Yes, Admiral. Representatives from 14 different species are observing, from safe distances. The Morthek Council has 3 ships monitoring us. The Zelthani Empire sent their top military analysts." Veltar felt a chill run through his body. "You invited other species to watch this battle?" Admiral Eunyoung turned to look at him. "This is not just a battle, Veltar. This is a graduation ceremony." Before he could ask what she meant, the Kethrain fleet appeared on the main display. Over 300 ships, the largest force the Empire had ever assembled. They had come to end the human resistance once and for all. "General Changmin sends his regards," the communications officer reported. "Ground forces are in position across 7 star systems." Veltar had been with human forces for 3 months now, but he still did not understand their command structure. General Changmin seemed to be coordinating something vast and complex, but no one would explain exactly what. "Begin Phase 1, Admiral Eunyoung ordered. Across human space, something extraordinary began to happen. Every human ship, every station, every colony began broadcasting the same message simultaneously, not to the Kethrain, but to the rest of the galaxy. "People of the stars," came the voice of General Changmin. "For 1 year, the Kethrain Empire has been teaching us about war. Today, we would like to show you what we have learned." The Kethrain fleet, expecting a desperate last stand, instead found themselves facing a human force that seemed almost casual in its confidence. The human ships were still outnumbered 3 to 1, but they moved with precision that spoke of absolute certainty. Admiral Eunyoung activated her personal communicator. "Captain Sora, you may begin the demonstration." What followed was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was a carefully choreographed display of human military capability. Every move had been planned months in advance, every tactic designed to teach specific lessons to the galaxy. Captain Sora's strike force hit the Kethrain fleet's left flank, but not to destroy it. Instead, they demonstrated advanced stealth technology that made their ships appear and disappear at will. The attack lasted exactly 10 minutes, just long enough for the observing alien species to record the new human capabilities. Phase 2, Admiral Eunyoung announced. Commander Insu's fleet showed off advanced electronic warfare, taking control of Kethrain communication systems and turning them against each other. Enemy ships began firing on their own forces, controlled by human hackers who had spent months learning Kethrain computer systems. The display continued for hours. Each phase demonstrated different aspects of human warfare: their ability to adapt enemy technology, their skill at psychological operations, their willingness to accept massive casualties to achieve strategic goals. But the most terrifying demonstration came in Phase 7. "Target the Kethrain command ship," Admiral Yoon ordered. "Prepare the Prometheus Protocol." Veltar had heard whispers about the Prometheus Protocol, but no human would explain what it was. Now he was about to find out. A single human ship, barely larger than a shuttle, approached the massive Kethrain flagship. The enemy vessel was 10 times larger and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. It should have been able to swat the human ship like an insect. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ship simply flew through the Kethrain flagship's shields as if they did not exist. Veltar watched in amazement as the small vessel passed harmlessly through energy barriers that should have vaporized it instantly. "How is that possible?" he whispered. Dr. Byung-ho smiled grimly. "We learned to phase our matter frequency to match the shield harmonics. The ship becomes temporarily transparent to their defensive systems." The human ship landed inside the Kethrain flagship's main hangar bay. Within minutes, the enemy command vessel was under human control, its crew captured, or neutralized. But the most shocking part was still to come. "Open a channel to the Kethrain Emperor," Admiral Yoon ordered. The main screen filled with the image of a massive alien creature, its multiple arms gesturing angrily. "Humans, you have defeated one fleet, but the Empire has thousands of ships. Surrender now, and we will allow your species to serve us." Admiral Young's expression did not change. "Your Majesty, you misunderstand the situation. We have not defeated one fleet. We have demonstrated our capability to defeat any fleet you send against us. Impossible. Your technology is primitive. Our technology is exactly as advanced as we need it to be." Admiral Yoon replied calmly. "Dr. Byung-ho, please show His Majesty the projection." A holographic display appeared between them, showing the entire Kethrain Empire. Hundreds of star systems, thousands of worlds, billions of citizens. "We have been studying your empire for 50 years, Your Majesty," Dr. Byung-ho explained. "We know the location of every military base, every shipyard, every important facility. More importantly, we know how to destroy them all simultaneously." The projection changed, showing human ships in position throughout Kethrain space. Not attacking, just waiting. "This is impossible," the Emperor sputtered. "How did you get ships past our defenses?" "The same way we phased through your flagship's shields," Admiral Yoon said. "We have been preparing for this war longer than you have been planning it." Veltar stared at the display in horror. The humans had not just been fighting a defensive war. They had been positioning forces throughout the enemy empire, preparing for a coordinated strike that would cripple the Kethrain completely. "You have a choice, Your Majesty," Admiral Yoon continued. "You can continue this war and we will demonstrate what total warfare really means, or you can accept our terms for peace." "What terms?" "Complete withdrawal from human space, reparations for the damage you have caused, and most importantly, you will send a message to every species in the galaxy explaining that attacking humans is not profitable." The Kethrain Emperor was silent for a long moment. Finally he spoke. "And if we refuse?" Admiral Yoon's smile was not pleasant. "Then you will discover that everything we have shown you so far was just the basic curriculum. We have much more advanced lessons available." The Emperor's multiple eyes widened in what Veltar recognized as terror. After another long pause, he nodded slowly. "We accept your terms." As the communication ended, Admiral Yoon turned to address the bridge crew. "Send confirmation to all observing fleets. The demonstration is complete." Dr. Byung-ho walked over to Veltar. "Now you understand what this war was really about." "You were never just fighting the Kethrain," Veltar said slowly. You were sending a message to everyone. Exactly. Every species that was watching, every government that was deciding whether humans would make good targets or good allies. They all just learned something very important about us. Admiral Yun Young approached them. Veltar, your observation mission is complete. You are free to return to your people. What should I tell them? Tell them the truth. Humans are not like other species. We do not fight wars to win territory or resources. We fight wars to make sure we never have to fight them again. As Veltar prepared to leave the human flagship, Admiral Yun Young handed him a data crystal. Complete records of our military capabilities, she said. We want your people to have accurate information. Veltar stared at the crystal in shock. You are giving me your military secrets? They are not secrets if we want you to know them, Admiral Yun Young replied. The most important thing we can teach the galaxy is that hiding from humans is pointless. We will find you. Fighting humans is pointless. We will win. The only rational choice is to be our friends. Hours later, as Veltar's ship left human space, he tried to write his final report. But how could he explain what he had witnessed? How could he tell the Morthek Council that they had discovered a species that turned warfare into education and conquest into diplomacy? The humans had not just defeated the Kethrain Empire, they had defeated the very concept of attacking Earth. Every species in the galaxy now knew that humans were too dangerous to fight and too valuable to ignore. As he deleted his personal observations for the third time, Veltar realized something that made his hands shake. The humans had allowed him to observe their war. They had captured him, brought him inside their forces, and shown him their capabilities. They had wanted him to see everything. The entire war, every battle, every demonstration of human ingenuity and determination had been performed partly for his benefit and for the benefit of every other species that was watching. Veltar finally began typing his report, but he kept it simple. Recommend immediate diplomatic contact with humans. Do not under any circumstances consider them a threat to be eliminated. They are exactly the allies we want and exactly the enemies we cannot afford. He sent the report and then sat back.